Ed Sheeran, The National, Jack Harlow, K-Tramine, the Dare EP. Y'all ain't hearing about any of that shit today. The month of May over here is significant culturally because it is New Zealand Music Month, or was. And how great is it that my favourite album of the month was co-created by a Kiwi composer. Annea Lockwood and Ruth Anderson's Tête-à-tête is a 3-track minimalist electronic album with a few key bits of context. These two were romantic partners. Anderson passed away in 2019, and while the first 2 tracks were composed in 74 and 84 respectively, only the last track, For Ruth, was created within the last few years, making this act as a retrospective on the time span of their relationship, like a prayer to what little things do live on. You have a long-form droning sound that slowly slumps in pitch. You have a collage of phone recordings secretly recorded to remember her by. There's even nature recordings of birdsong and trickling water. All of it is stunning, but even if this kind of abstract sound sculpture isn't your cup of tea, I would at least recommend listening to Conversations, track 2, the one with the phone recordings on it. If your idea of emotionally resonant avant-garde music starts and ends with the 7-hour caretaker project about onset dementia that everyone eventually message chained into a creepypasta, then this might be a good place to branch out. Number 2 on the bill is another collaboration. It's called The Beat My Head Hit by New York composer Ben Vida with the percussion and pianist quartet Yarn/Wire and soprano vocalist Nina Dante. A lot going on there. It's a beat poetry album that seems to rhythmically work in tides, like lapping waves. But most notable is that you're hearing 4 voices layered over one another, perfectly synchronized, creating what this Boomcat blurb describes as a meta voice. Sounds like a Looney Tunes character presenting for Mark Zuckerberg. A meta voice! If you like texture, playing with noises, and feeling out for the slivers of warmth in a very cold, almost sterile environment, Autechre fans take note, then go on. See if this is some spoken word you won't cringe at. New York-based rapper Billy Woods and California-based producer Kenny Segal were back in the stew.
I lie down like Vida. People don't want the truth, they want me to tell them grandma went to heaven.
This one's got a more distinct sense of humour about it. Even the shorter tracks here shine, like Blue Smoke using post-bop jazz as a bass floor, or Bad Dreams Are Only Dreams sounding like the theme to the last cigarette that you'll ever smoke. The highlights, I think, are that one, Bad Dreams, Babylon by Bus, and As the Crow Flies. I've had time to calm down a little bit, settle into my rationale, and obviously reckon that Hiding Places is the cohesive masterpiece, but Maps is still dense, tense, and has nothing for which I would hold against. And number 4, London Brew's Self-Titled, a fusion jazz collective of 12 London musicians extrapolating from the great Miles Davis album Bitches Brew. It's crisp, it's got motion, it's splashing with colour, and it even evokes the modern bustle in ways that aren't strictly optimistic. It's got undertones of stress and overwhelm. The few tracks that even take slight inspo from dub, like Raven Flies Low and Train Lines, are my highlights, although the album centres upon Miles Chase's new Voodoo in the Church, which is where all the electric current charges through. Here's a last minute intermission while I'm editing the video together. I thought it was weird and dumb that I didn't include Good Lies by Overmono, which is one of the more anticipated electronic releases of the year. This duo released a banger of a single at the start of the year, Is You, and before that they released So You Know, which is just simply incredible. So the album did live up to expectations, although it's delivered a bit of a different, calmer, sweeter vibe than I think most people were expecting. It was really good though. There are quite a few New Zealand-based tracks for this month's A-Mix. It's been a simmering, exciting month, and word on the street is that the Auckland local scene is kind of building up again. So how exciting is that? But starting off the A-Mix is Spit It Out by Grecco Romank, who I mentioned earlier, a band from Auckland dealing in this industrial, beat-heavy noise pop that seems like an answer to, like, Coil, or maybe less Coil, more Boy Harsher. It gets sweaty, sexually lurid, mischievous, and unexpectedly theatre kid near the end with this operatic call. It's quite jarring to me, but I like the idea of it. Of course, I had to include Miles Chase's The New Voodoo in the Church by London Brew. The next song on the mix is called BADA, or B-A-D-A, You're born alone and you die alone. And that's good enough for me, so I hope it's good enough for you too. It's by a band called Club Ruby. This is their first released single, and it's Auckland's answer to the American band Los Campesinos. It's caffeinated and learning to love itself. Portraits by Panchiko, which is the only song to actually live up to the total gas of this band's backstory. The next one is Porno from RP Boo's latest Legacy compilation, Legacy Volume 2.
You cannot lie, that's how I get down like that. Fuck me, damn it, fuck me, damn it, fuck me, damn it.
It seems important to reiterate that RP Boo's album here isn't necessarily new material. It's been living on mixes for years. Legacy Volume 2 has some scant material for sure, and I'll be the first to admit that a lot of it is only worth listening to because it's RP Boo, and he's a musician whose legacy Lucy's you should want to hear. But it also has two outright masterpieces. One is called Total Darkness, a complete bleak void, one that only seems to blacken the further that it goes, and also the track Porno, which is very explicit and hilarious. You've got DJs doing some pretty groundbreaking narrative work with sounds of sex and porn and moans, like Jana Rush on G-Spot, or DJ Rashad's Come On Girl, which doesn't sample porn but rather sexual phrases. And then you've got Porno by RP Boo, which is literally just putting the sounds over a beat that already, percussion-wise, sounds like various spanking noises. It's a beat representing the physicality, the vigor, the zeal, the aggression in sex. And the lines are blurred as to whether this representation of sex is sex positive. The more you hear "fuck me damn it" repeated again and again, the words begin to take on a different kind of weight. It reminds me of the song Mother by Idols, and how that chorus just sinks into the ground a little bit and feels scarier after hearing the bridge for the first time. As the Crow Flies by Billy Woods and Kenny Segal, featuring their BFF Lucid.
I'm in the park with the baby on the swings. When it hits me crazy, anything at all could happen to him. He been climbing high and high.
It's the last song on the album, and the very last verse you hear from Billy Woods just clears the whole thing. It's beautiful. Best Part by Cindy, another Auckland band, but this time from the west side. This is a minute and a half. It's a short burst. The guitar melody really sticks out on this one. It's like a tongue stain from a lollipop. Axe Ox from the Russian space rock band Gnoomes with 2 O's. Popstar and Manix by Fable. Manix, of course, meaning Manukau, South Auckland.
We on an island and this ain't the tropics. This ain't it, this ain't it.
And also the line, "We're on an island, but this ain't a tropics," is one of those lyrics about living in Auckland or in New Zealand that you'll feel it if you just get it. Another last minute intermission, this one because the song literally came out in the middle of editing this. So the PG Lang cousins, Kendrick Lamar and Baby Keem, they dropped the Hillbillies.
We gon' fuck up the world, excuse me, but it's that your girl, didn't mean to possess your girl.
A song that very much takes after the Dark World Records label sound, that nighttime train ride atmosphere. I really love it. It's loose, it's light-footed. A lot of people don't like the low stakes of this song, considering that Kendrick, in particular, just dropped a behemoth of an album last year. But I think with Keem, they just make goofy rap together, and this one actually sounds beautiful. If you like Range Brothers more than this, I respect that, but I don't. The Tinker by the relatively new Manchester post-rock band Maruja, or Maruja. It's a pretty heavy-handed track, this one, and it reminds me of the grandeur of that other band, The Comet Is Coming, a band that I don't particularly love, but this kind of stuff does sound good to the ears on some days, and hey, that ain't nothing. And closing the A-mix off with Deceiver, a gorgeous, starry track from Field Recordings artist Claire Rousay and singer-songwriter Helena Deland, who you might know as the pretty voice at the end of JPEG Mafia's Free the Frail.
Streetlights sweeping through me, catching shady business of mine.
Two details to note here: the owl-like woodwind melody at 2:25. and the warm pulse of harmonized ooze at 2:43.
I'm not the deceiver.
It just hit 12 in the afternoon while recording. Whew. I love knowing that I have the rest of the day ahead of me, you know? This month's B-Mix begins with Present Joys by the United Sacred Harp Musical Association. Which sounds a bit random until you discover the reason that this United Sacred Harp Musical Association even had their performances recorded in the first place. Alan Lomax, who is super significant. He collected recordings of folk music all across the world and had a key part in the folk revivals of the 40s, 50s, 60s. He discovered and popularized Robert Johnson, Woody Guthrie, Muddy Waters, Pete Seeger, and he did all of it out of sheer passion. He usually didn't make much money or any money from it at all. But our understanding of folk across the world is a lot richer thanks to his work. So Present Joys by the United Sacred Harp Musical is one of those captures of a magic moment. It makes us feel kind of honored to be able to listen in on it. Guilt by Marianne Faithfull on her big acclaimed sig-posing album Broken English, which addresses, among other things, drug addiction. And so this is a dark, smoky, inky black song about wanting to feel something.
If I could get away with murder, I'd take my gun and I'd commit it.
Fans of the hip-hop band Cunning Linguists will also recognize the chorus and the bridge melody from the track Murder Part 2 featuring Big Crit. Every Hoary is a Star by Mara TK and Troy Kingi, the title of which is a flip on the classic Boris Gardner song, takes a racial slur and reclaims it in a spiritual, uplifting way. If I had to compare this piece to the work of any musician, the ongoing groove and the keyboard licks remind me so much of Fela Kuti and his band The Africa 70. Although one slight nitpick that's always kind of got at me about this track is all the peaking and all the weird... I could never tell if it was on purpose, but it was always so weirdly timed and distracting. It still doesn't detract too much from the fact that it is a masterpiece of a song. It'll age very finely in the years to come. Crunchy, early 80s post-punk from Christchurch, it's the Gordons, with one of their more underrated tracks, I think, Coal Miner's Song. It's got a dirty riff.
Such a naughty little rascal.
A little break after that would be Enrico Pieranunzi's and improvisation on the Domenico Scarlatti Keyboard Sonata 351. Hey, we can have classical in the show, can't we? One of the happiest songs that this country's ever given us is so happy that the shoddy recording quality can't change a damn thing about the smile it plasters across me face. It's Kia to Mahia, or To Be Free, by Marie Sheehan. The best mashup artist of the 21st century is either Too Many DJs or Girl Talk. Neil Cicierega doesn't even come close, sorry. Summer Smoke by Girl Talk is my next jam. You'll have to listen to this one to really get the most out of it.
Now I ain't saying she a gold digger, but she ain't messing with no broke. Now I ain't saying
You hear wistful songs about New York, California, LA, but for all my North Shore pals out there, how weird would it be to hear a song wistfully reminiscing on Takapuna Beach?
If only you could see a hometown now.
This one came out on the edge of the 80s, and I assume it was written about how it used to be before then, like during the 70s. Now I'm listening to it in 2023. That shit's just down the road, my boy. This is Don McGlashan's band, and for those who don't know, he would go on to form the Mottenbirds, a greater band with plenty of great songs, but none as raw and real as Andy by the Front Lawns. The best Flight of the Conchords song is Bus Driver's song. I don't give a fuck.
I always thought I'd marry Paula, but some things just don't work out that way.
What makes it so timeless is that the humor is derived from a very wistful, nostalgic truth about small town living, or the life goes on kind of sigh that we give when we're looking back on our biggest regrets. The version that I specifically want you to hear is on the Folk the World CD from 2002. Just after the 2-minute mark, Jermaine plays the Big Ben theme on his guitar, and it is heart-melting.
Well, do you hear that sound? The town clock heard from anywhere in town.
And, in my opinion, the greatest Kiwi band ever, The Clean. Anything could happen. A song whose mantra we should all keep in our heads to stay grateful and keep it sunny in our hearts. Stay loving, guys. I'm out.